Hello. Today we're interviewing Stefanie on the channel Alcohol Free. How are you today, Stefanie?
I'm good, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming to talk with us today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And what we wanted to talk about today was, what it was like being raised, where you were raised, some of your life before you started drinking, how you started drinking, your drinking career, and then why you stopped. So I'm going to try to not interrupt you. It's hard for a guy that talks too much. But anyway, why don't you start off, Stefanie? Go for it.
Well, I was raised in a heavily Irish family. Everyone either drank a lot or was a teetotaler. I only ever saw anyone have a beer or a glass of wine with dinner on TV. I started drinking heavily at the age of 15 and continued until my 40s.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where were you? You were an Irish family. Was it, what part of the United States was it?
I grew up between three small towns. One was Chili Lake, California. The other was in southern Idaho, and the other was in Missouri.
Oh, so you moved around.
Yeah, I moved around. My mother had a mental illness, and so I would spend part of the time with an aunt in Idaho or part of the time with an aunt in Missouri whenever my mother was having an episode.
You have brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child.
Only child, that's very nice. And by Irish, what do you mean by that?
My family was of heavily Scotch-Irish descent, such that we really didn't use doctors. We kind of medicated ourselves, and whiskey was heavily involved. Even the teetotalers, during an illness, except for my father, but everyone used whiskey as a medication. Not everyone drank.
Oh, I see. So some people used it only when they were sick, maybe?
Right.
Okay, and then other people drank more heavily?
Yeah, other people used it as a beverage. Everyone used it as a medication.
Oh.
So I grew up with it used as a medication. And then at the age of 15, I discovered this other type of alcohol called wine.
Oh.
And so, yeah.
You liked wine better than hard liquor?
I did at the time.
Yes.
Don't much like any of it these days. It turned on me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I got quite involved with wine.
Mm-hmm. So when you first started drinking, were you just drinking every once in a while, or was it all the time?
Oh, I drank all the time.
Right from the get-go?
Right from the get-go. I tried to control it. I think I was self-medicating still, okay. Even though I mean, I liked the beverage, but I liked the effect.
Okay.
So I started out deciding that if I could keep a slight buzz all the time, I could do this thing called life.
Huh.
So that was my plan.
So how did you get access to alcohol when you were so young?
I had a cousin who drank. My introduction to wine, I was at an aunt's house, and a cousin and I and a friend decided to bake a cake from scratch. And the recipe called for vinegar, and there was no vinegar in the house, but we found my older cousin's bottle of, well, I won't say the brand, but it was red wine.
Oh, okay.
And we started putting it in the cake, and I tasted a little bit, and I kind of liked how it made me feel, so I just kept on tasting it.
Yeah.
And by the time I got the cake in the oven, I had to go lie down.
Yeah, so when you first started drinking, your tolerance wasn't too great?
No, my tolerance wasn't great. My parents found out I had been drinking, and then my mother gave me permission to drink at home as long as I didn't drink out of the house. And so I immediately began to do both.
Mm-hmm. During your drinking career, what sort of work did you do?
Oh, well, besides trying to be a wife, mother, and homemaker. I did housekeeping and restaurant work, and I had started to do some writing and actually achieved being low-level published a little bit.
Oh, so you enjoyed writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did your drinking progress?
My drinking progressed. There's a Guns N' Roses song called Mr. Brownstone the song is about heroin, but for me it was about alcohol. I used to do a little, wouldn't do it, so the little got more and more. I just drank more and more heavily and to less and less effect.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people drink alcohol because of the effects. They're trying to use it as you mentioned, as a medication. How did it work for you as a medication?
At first I thought it was working pretty well. I'm glad there was no social media at the time, because I've since heard stories such that other people didn't think it was working so well for me, but I just didn't know it. So while I thought I was popular and making friends, I had people getting some great laughs at my expense.
Oh.
But early on, I had a lot of anxiety, and the alcohol helped with that at first.
Yeah. Yeah, the main reason I started drinking was, I was kind of a nerd when I grew up. Carried a book everywhere I went.
Yeah.
I got straight A's.
Yeah.
I really felt school was important, and I didn't fit in at all. So the first time I got super drunk, I blacked out. I was with a bunch of people. My parents were down in San Francisco. We were in my hometown. And the last thing I remember saying, I'm going to take a drink out of every. And I did that because I wanted to be accepted. Part of the problem was that I wasn't accepted. And like you said, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It was not until I was many years sober that my brother said, you were an awful ass when you vomited down the heating vent.
Yeah.
So, did you ever have any problems with, say, blackout drinking?
Towards the end, I would not completely black out, but kind of gray out. I'd vaguely remember what happened, and I guess sometimes I did black out. I would vaguely remember what happened, except for some of my idiotic behavior. I'd have to learn about that over the phone during a hangover. Much of it involved dancing, it turns out.
Dancing?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I guess when I'm drunk, I think I can dance, and I like to dance.
Yeah,
When I'm sober, I don't care to dance.
Yeah.
I know I'm awkward.
So, did you drink more and more?
Yeah, I drank more and more and started adding pharmaceutical drugs, and that was the beginning of the end.
And were you doing it for the same reason, that try to deal with some, I call them mental and emotional challenges? We all get those, but I think sometimes the alcohol actually makes them worse.
Oh, that was one of the things I wish I had known about alcohol is that it's a depressant.
Yeah.
After my children were born, I did a lot of drinking to quote unquote help combat depression.
Yeah.
And I was giving myself a depressant.
Yeah. It's amazing. When I was diagnosed with alcoholism, I had suicidal depression. And I was the same boat you were. I didn't know alcohol was a depressant. I didn't know it could cause depression. I mean, it's amazing how there's a lot of things we just don't know in our culture.
Yeah.
Did you ever have anyone tell you, what could happen to you when you drank?
No. Well, other than it was a sin and I'd go to hell.
Oh.
But
yeah.
In this life, no.
Yeah. And when you were drinking, you kind of intimated that people started saying things about you.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a group of people or some loved ones come to you and say, do like what they call an intervention?
Oh, heavens, no, not in my family.
Oh.
My family was mostly drinkers.
Oh.
So, I had that. I could, be sick enough to have my stomach pumped and kind of come home to cheers, like, hey, look at you go.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
that was a problem.
Yeah. And so the pharmaceuticals, did you get those from a doctor? Or?
Yeah.
And so you went to him with your problems, and he said, well, take this.
Right.
And you said that they didn't help?
They helped, but then I discovered that I was thinking a glass or two of wine would like double the effect. Of course, it was more like a bottle or two, but it would take those pharmaceuticals and make them much stronger.
Yeah.
So I thought I had really discovered the answer to life. I'm really going to be able to do this.
So initially, it seemed like they were working, and then then they stopped working?
Ultimately, yeah. I went through medical trouble and legal trouble, but ultimately, just the drugs and alcohol stopped working.
So, just out of curiosity, I'm a physician, or I'm a retired physician. What was your impression of how the medical profession helped you?
Well, the medical profession sent me to the mental health profession. And initially, I felt like that was helpful, but early on, it became not helpful at all.
Yeah, I think that we have an idea that we know how to help people, but I don't think we do. We don't know how to help people yet.
I didn't find what I needed there.
Yeah. So it sounds like as you were going along, you started at age 15. So when did you start thinking, this is not for me?
Well, I started to think I had a problem at 17, and then 10 years later at 27, it started to occur to me that maybe I'll have to try to stop drinking. And I couldn't.
So you decided at 17 you thought you had some problems, but
right.
It's amazing we continued to drink for, and this is not an uncommon story, you do it for 10 more years, but you didn't quit at age 27, did you?
I didn't succeed at quitting. I would quit for a while, make it about 8 weeks, and then feel like I had to have a drink. That's a lie. I had to have a bottle. Yeah. I didn't have a drink. I set out to have a drink.
So, I was talking to someone today about Ulysses S. Grant and how, if he had just one glass of wine, he'd end up in a 2-week bender. He wouldn't know what had happened for 2 weeks. He just lost control. That pretty much described how I drank. Yeah. I couldn't predict my behavior, and near the end, I continually drunk. And a lot of times I didn't act like it, but I was under the influence all the time. And so when you finally what made you decide, I'm stopping this?
Sheer selfishness. I drank to feel better. Then alcohol quit working, and then finally, alcohol was making me feel worse. Yeah. That wasn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I would drink to try to relax and end up drunk, pacing the floor, angry at someone for something they said 6 months ago, and unable to even sit down, much less lie down and go to sleep.
Yeah. Would you say that you're an alcoholic?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely an alcoholic.
And how did you arrive at that diagnosis, if you will?
Well, I arrived at that diagnosis when I was 27. I stepped into a recovery center. I went for depression. And from there, they suggested an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And then when I went there, everyone who opened their mouth was in some way telling my story.
Yeah.
So I knew it's like, I'm I finally found a place where I fit in. I'm one of these people.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that shocked me about AA was how transparent people were and how much they cared about you. And, you know, they know that it's not an easy task. Now, sometimes people, and I would say it's probably more than not, they have other problems, you know, we'll call them comorbidities. You know, you have physical problems, oftentimes they come from alcohol, and then mental and emotional problems. And so those are tough problems to deal with. They're really challenging.
Yeah.
So now that you look back on your drinking career, what would you say to anyone that's thinking of drinking?
Please get all the information before you start, because we are so conditioned from the cradle to think of alcohol as a fun beverage, and it is a drug.
Yeah.
It has certain effects.
Yeah.
And those are not advertised. I wish when alcohol is advertised on TV, they had the same laws as for pharmaceutical drugs, that they can show you the pretty pictures, but they have to tell you the actual effects.
Yeah.
Because we're raised looking at pretty pictures of happy people on the beach drinking beer. And have you ever been to a beer party on the beach? It doesn't look like that.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Now, there's young people in particular, a lot of them start drinking and they'll drink off and on. So now you gave really good advice for someone that's never drank. Now, what would you say to a person that's into drinking?
The same thing. Just please do some research, because I feel like we're being tricked.
Yeah.
From the cradle on up, the way we used to be about cigarettes.
That's an excellent point.
And now cigarettes can't be advertised at all. I wish alcohol could not be advertised. I mean, I certainly wouldn't take away anyone's rights to drink. I wouldn't prohibit anything, but this is a drug. It's a strong drug. It kills people. It kills people secondhand.
Yeah.
Every day. But we don't grow up with those images.
Yeah. Now, where I met you and where I continue to see you is at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings.
Yeah.
And now let's say someone thinks that they're thinking, I have a problem with drinking. What would you say to someone that's thinking of going to AA?
They have what's called open meetings. That means they're open to anyone. Please find an open meeting, come in, sit, listen. Find more than one meeting. Each meeting is a little different. And again, with recovery, as in with alcoholism, do your research. There's a lot, if AA is not for you, there are other programs. A lot of people just find what they need in AA. It's not like a religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like every point must be followed perfectly. But, check it out if you feel free to check it out. If not, get online and do research about recovery tools that are for free.
Yeah. Well, it's been an excellent interview. You're an amazing person. I've always enjoyed listening to hear you talk. And, I heard someone today, they asked me, I disclosed that you were going to be interviewed today. And he goes, all right, I want to hear a little bit of her story. And that's what our stories help each other.
Yeah.
And, you see people for what, we're all different, all have unique challenges. So I really appreciate your time. Did you have any last words you want to share with us?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Stefanie.
Thank you.
And that's our interview for today. And as usual, we encourage you to subscribe to the channel, Alcohol Free. Leave a comment, and we look forward to another interview and other discussions in the near future. Thank you very much.